We have a lot of work ahead of us over here on the House side too, but on the Senate side, we still have nominations we're going through. We also have a Yemen proposal that I guess they came out with a different resolution. I didn't get a chance to read it yet this morning to deal with the Saudi Arabia issue separately from the positions that we're in, or the fortifications that we're doing to help Saudi Arabia in Yemen. And so we're going to deal with that because it's what's called a privileged resolution, which in the Senate means it comes up and you have to dispose of it and you have to deal with it. So we're going to deal with that. We also have the farm bill that Pat Roberts keeps talking about. Every time he stands up, we go, okay, it's about the farm bill again. But the farm bill's done, and so we need to pass that. And we also have the funding issue that is probably the big issue for us. I'm chairman of the Homeland Security Subcommittee on the Appropriations Committee. The wall and the wall system literally said to Bozeman, why didn't you tell me about this before you said this was a great subcommittee? He like leaves it quickly and here, Shelley, this is wonderful. So I did a border tour. And which I would recommend to every single American. First of all, we've had a wall in this country for decades, and particularly in California, in the California sector, San Diego and Tijuana. And so a lot of the money, when it says, he being the president, but when you refer to a wall, it's really a wall system. It's not all physical barrier wall. But what the border agents do every day, that is tough stuff. That is not for the faint of heart. And so I think every day when we say our prayers, we need to include the Border Patrol in that because it is really, really difficult. We have a long border, and now everybody shifts wherever the holes are. You know, there's people on the other side that tell them where to shift and how to get through. Last month, 27,000 families came over illegally. That's a lot of people.
Wow.
And the numbers are going up and up and up. So I think fortifying our southern border is something I'm particularly engaged in, obviously, in my subcommittee. I think it's very important to the safety of our own country. It's important to the safety of the people who are trying to come into our country, and it's in our best interest. So hopefully we can reach a compromise. We had $1.6 billion in our bill, which is what the president initially asked for. He's now up to the ante to $5 billion, which is what's in the House bill. I think it's going to boil down to what kind of compromise we can get with the Democrats and how far they're willing to go. In my subcommittee, I only lost 5 Democrats on the $1.6 billion of wall, which is 60 miles of physical barrier, and then a lot of the wall system that goes along with it, with another 375 border agents. So it's been a real learning experience for me. I traveled with the commandant of the Coast Guard, because also in our bill is it's an ice cutter, but they now call it the Polar Security Vessel. And it's really important because the last one we built in the 70s, and it's older than me. So I mean, it's showing its age. And as we know, China and Russia are patrolling that north of Alaska. Senator Murkowski reminds me every single day. And it's important that we have the capacity to really play in the Arctic region. So I'm very much on board with our Polar Security Vessel. I think it's important, and that's a big part of this bill as well. So I think what it's going to be is a compromise. They moved it to December the 21st to everybody's. I know. You know what that means. So I had a reporter ask me like 2 years ago, we were pushing up to Christmas, and they said, does Christmas put a lot of pressure on? Such a stupid question. Does Christmas put a lot of pressure on members to want to, compromise? I'm like, well, yes. Yes, they do. And they said, well, why is that? And I said, birth of Jesus. And they're just like, forget it. But, slow news day, I guess. But, so anyway, I hope we don't go to the 21st, but in all likelihood, we've been through this many, many times before. it's probably a safe bet that we probably will be here on December the 21st. Which to me is terrible because I'm remodeling my kitchen and I have to get home because Charlie can't do it all himself, even though Jim thinks that he can. On the opioid issue, this is hitting my state severely hard. We have the highest per capita of overdoses resulting in death per capita. It has hit families that I know, that my kids went to school with, their kids, friends. The guy who's remodeling my kitchen came in. He has 7 children, and his 38-year-old daughter just died of a heroin overdose. He wants to press charges on the guy that gave her the heroin, but you never know the whole story, and really, really sad. I sat next to somebody at a school function up here. Our grandchildren go to school up here. It was Grandparents' Day. I went over there and they told me, I had met them last year, which was sort of funny, and then we sort of rekindled our little friendship, and they told me that they lost their son to an overdose. And so it's just cutting all kinds of different barriers, and it's really, really sad. So we've done a lot of work, bipartisan. New Hampshire has the same issue for a rural state. We've done a lot of innovative things in our state. Jim mentioned the neonatal abstinence syndrome babies. We have some very cutting edge kind of treatments that we've developed because we had to. And we've done some community response teams, critical response teams. Our drug courts are working. I'm glad to see that the president was able to get the Chinese to agree to work with us on the fentanyl issue, because that's really where the killer is. More people in West Virginia die from fentanyl overdose than from heroin or any other kind of opioid. And but the thing about the problem is it changes. So it's gone from prescription drugs to heroin with fentanyl, and now it's synthetic methamphetamine, which is a whole different kind of chemistry. And we're lacking in professionals, we're lacking in treatment. We are upping our medication-assisted treatment facilities, also abstinence-only treatment facilities. I mean, you guys know, it's sometimes people got to go 3 and 4 times before it really sticks and makes a big difference in your life. So that's something I'm deeply committed to. It's expensive, but we've got to. I tell all my friends in the states that are not highly affected, if we don't knock this out in West Virginia, New Hampshire, and Southeast Ohio, it's coming to North Dakota. It's coming to Montana. I mean, you can't say that it's never going to get here, because it will. And so it's been really sad for us. The last thing I'll say is this was the year of the woman. We got one woman on the Republican side, Carol Miller from West Virginia. And I'm very proud of Carol coming into the House. But as Susan knows, we are just getting our butts kicked on this. And it's a question that we ask all of us. Many of you have sat in rooms with me and other women Republican members, to try to figure out what is it that we need to do, particularly when you see on the Democrat side, and congratulations to them, where they're bringing in women, younger women with kids, things that, when I first went in, I think there were 58 women in the House, but only 7 of us had kids under 18. Now it's just changing, and so it's a chore. It's something that I think me as a Republican woman is very concerned about, because I'm proud to be a Republican and what I stand for, but it's not even really about what we can do at the ballot box. It's about being able to have our voices in that what is now a much larger group of women in the collective body. And on the Senate side, we're going to have 7, which is the most we've ever had. The Democrats will have 17. They lost a couple of their women this time, and we picked up 3 women were elected for the first time in their state. Marcia is the first woman from Tennessee. Cindy Hyde-Smith is the first woman from Mississippi. And I believe maybe Jackie Rosen might be the first woman from Nevada. So those are always nice first to have. I'm the first one from West Virginia, so I'm always touting that. The last thing I'll say is one of the things I've been concentrating on in our state of West Virginia, because we're transitioning out of a heavy manufacturing, coal-based economy. We still love coal in West Virginia. We still want our coal, but we've got to face the facts. We can't put all our eggs in one basket. We've got to transition, and we're working hard at it with our higher education institutions of startups and entrepreneurial types of things. So I've been going around to the 5th grade to do a program called West Virginia Girls Rise Up. I get all the girls in the 5th grade in the room and talk about their potential and what they can do. We have a lot of fun with it. I thought maybe that I would get resistance from the schools saying you can't separate the boys from the girls and just talk to the girls. And then I realized all the teachers are women. Of course I can. And all the reporters are women. So they're like, yeah, let's do this. So we have a really good time. And sometimes we'll take a celebrity guest with us. We took Peggy Whitson, who was a very accomplished woman astronaut. She was terrific. Oh, they could have cared less I was in the room. She had that blue NASA suit on, and that was, you know her? She's great. She's great. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to do, sort of off away from being in the Senate, to try to help our young next generation of leaders, regardless of what their party might be, just to sort of demystify public service and a public servant, particularly at the higher levels for our young girls. But I'm really enjoying the Senate still, and I miss my House friends. I see, but boy, I go over to the House and all the faces are changing and have changed. And Jeff Flake was in my class. I think I'm down to Sam from Missouri, Sam Graves. Culberson was in my class. No, he's not around. And I'm trying to think who else in my class, but it's only like 2 or 3 of us left from the class of 2000.
Wow.
So who else? Did somebody say? Thank you all very much, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions.
Fantastic.
The trade issue, the Mexico, Canada, U.S. agreement, what do you see coming down, going in, obviously it's probably going to be maybe early next year, or in trade in general on the agenda?
Well, it's been interesting to watch the trade issue because a lot of our Republican members are from the ag community. And they've been pretty patient with this, I'd say, like South Dakota, Kansas, Iowa, the big ag I'm talking about. And the message that you would get, well, they think, particularly on the China issue, that, well, the president really knows what he's doing. He's going to get a deal. He's going to get a deal, and we're going to have short-term pain for a long-term gain. And it starting to turn because it's getting too much, the short term's turning into too long a term. And a lot of our ag community has really been suffering, and it's been a tough environment for ag anyway. And so I think that has probably, I think what you saw the president announce when he was at that meeting in South America to try to narrow that issue with China was welcomed in those communities. So I think in terms of the Mexico, Canada, I haven't heard any negatives. I'm sure there's some. I don't think we'll have, I could be wrong, but I don't think we'll have any problems passing that. I think that, I thought it was interesting that former Prime Minister Mulroney mentioned that in his, in part of his eulogy to, he started getting into all kinds of policy. I thought that was like, no, go back to talking about it. But, like I know what I'm doing. But anyway, so I think that's going to probably be fine. I think it's going to be interesting to see with the president leading up to his reelect, with people in our conference. Sherrod Brown, he's combing his hair now. I mean, it was on the Twitter sphere. It was on, and I actually razzed him about it yesterday. I said, I see you're combing your hair now, Sherrod. Are you running for president? And he laughed and said, well, that wasn't really fair because he just had a haircut. And then his measure of when it's time to get it cut again is it look like Bernie's, and then it's time to cut it back down. But you've got him, you've got Gillibrand, you've got Klobuchar, Harris, Warren, Bernie, Booker. You just don't know. Oh, and then somebody said, Bennett said he might look at it yesterday. So you don't know the dynamics, once that gets into the Senate, and I can only speak to the Senate, but in the Senate, what kind of impacts that's gonna have. I hope that we can still get things like this through and done and to the benefit of a lot of people. But I think it's gonna be interesting to watch. And, you know, we had Cruz and Graham and Rubio last time to watch them. And then it's gonna be interesting when Mitt Romney comes in, what kind of a position is he gonna take on a lot of these as a former presidential candidate. I think we're gonna be for an interesting 2 years, but I don't know how much resist Trump at any cost is gonna drive every policy agreement, or if they're gonna pick and choose. I hope they pick and choose.